Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. My microphone's way down here. Yoink. Yoink. Okay. I'm an employment attorney on this channel. We answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. We have a question here from JunkSys19, who says, so, during a pretrial voluntary mediation, is it common that after doing a damages calculation, the plaintiff has, say, $75,000 in actual lost wages, ignoring all their damages? Should a plaintiff during mediation or even direct settlement talks expect the defendant to try to not pay the full actual lost wages? Yes. How frequently do defendants agree with actual damage calculation? With the actual damage calculation being reasonable, but argue they don't even want to pay the full lost wages? All the time. Constantly. Consistently. In brief, plaintiff just wants his or her lost wages and just doesn't want to worry about other damages, emotional damages, and others. The plaintiff just wants to be made whole on lost wages and put the situation behind them. All right. So I get it. You've got a damage calculation, and you say, I want to part with my emotional damages. I want to part with my punitive damages. I want to part with my speculative damages for my economic damages going forward. I just want what you owe me. Just want the money I'm out. And that to you sounds very reasonable. And it may be reasonable. It might be that you're being incredibly reasonable. Here's the issue. In this question, you've uncoupled the damage calculation from the liability portion of your case, right? So we can't ascertain if you're being reasonable or not because we don't know what you've got. We don't know what happened to you. Better way to put it, we don't know what they did to you, right? We also don't know what your ability level is to prove that, right? We don't know, do you have counsel? We don't know what evidence you have. Do you have witnesses? Do you have documents? Do you have a video? Do you have how egregious was what was done, right? Was it a hate crime or was it aggressively rude and discriminatory, right? There's a spectrum of how bad things are for obvious reasons, right? So it's important you have to think of this settlement negotiation in the totality of the circumstance. If you're going in there and you're saying, listen, I just want 75. Last best final, I want 75K. The employer's attorney might say in the back of her or his head, hey, that's a great deal. But they're not going to say that to you, right? I mean, they're going to say that to you, like, oh, you only want 75? Well, I wonder why. What's wrong with your case, right? By the same token, they might say, when they hear 75, they might say, oh, JunkSys19 has no chance of proving this case. I mean, listen, first off, the case, maybe not that egregious, right? And none of this is true about you. I know nothing about you. I'm giving you a hypothetical, right? But they might say, 75? I mean, they call them a ginger, right? Like, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of, like, right? Some stupid joke, like, gingers go to hell, right? Like, as if as if having red hair was a protected class, right? So, there's lots of jokes about that stuff. Like, gingers don't go to heaven. That's rude. And I think, depending, maybe you could cobble together an argument that's discriminatory in a way. Because certain cultures are more likely to have red hair than others. And, whatever. We can talk about it. This is a thought experiment. This is not legal advice for gingers, for people with red hair, who maybe I shouldn't be calling by that term, frankly. But anyways, moving on. I will self-reflect later. Defense counsel might be like, listen, we know it happened. We're very confident you can prove it happened. Everybody in the entire assembly heard it happen. We just don't think it's that bad. So, like, the idea that you left your job because somebody at the workplace said that, nah. Or maybe there's a retaliation component, right? Like, maybe you filed a complaint and HR was like, okay, I guess, sure. And then 3 months later, you were terminated. You can argue retaliation there, but they might say, listen, we don't think anyone's going to buy that we fired you for complaining about that because we don't think it was a big issue. We think it was a non-issue. Do you see like the give and take? Like they can think you can prove it and still not care that much. Or other way to go, they can be like, oh my God, this manager went out and told this plaintiff that he thinks that all people with red hair should be shaved bald and then have their throat slit. And the plaintiff said, you can't really mean that. And the manager said, oh, I do, and I want to start with you. Oh my God. That is some outrageous anti-red hair sentiment, right? That is horrific. But let's say it happened in an elevator. Just the plaintiff and that manager who said wildly hateful things, right? Can that plaintiff prove it? Plaintiff's word against the manager's word. I tend to favor the plaintiff in those one-on-one interactions. I think that if you're doing your job as an attorney and the client's well, you can usually get that across the finish line. You can edge out the manager. That being said, still must admit it's a whole heap and helping of risk, right? Like there's a lot going on there. So they can think, oh my God, the allegations here are horrific. But I don't know how often this wins. Maybe it wins only 6 times out of 10. So my point is, 1, you're not looking at the totality of the circumstance for your settlement negotiation. 2, I understand your perspective of like, I just want to make a reasonable offer and be done with this and walk away. You don't fully have that option because they're not going to take whatever you give. Like they don't know everything you have. So if you come in too low, they're not necessarily going to know it's a good deal, right? I mean, they might think there's something wrong with your case, right? Entirely possible, especially early on, right? You're at an early mediation settlement negotiation. If you come in too low, some defense counsel will read, attorney selling client out. Client can't go to trial. Something wrong with the case. They need it done now. Whatever it is, right? So there's a balancing act. And that balancing act is going to consist of you understanding the totality of the circumstance as best you can. It's going to be an imperfect understanding for you, for your attorney, for the other side. Everyone's dealing with limited information, right? But you try to get the best read of the lay of the land that you can. And then you pick a number, which is positional, to open your demands at. And you need to think about things like, does this show the correct confidence? Does this signal properly that I'm negotiating in good faith? Does this make me appear to be a rational and educated and intelligent plaintiff, right? So there's a lot of ways to shoot yourself in the foot with this, right? Like, I want $30 million. Okay. I mean, that would take you literally 180 years to earn at your current rate of pay. So you were never going to earn that. That's not going to be encompassed in your economic damages. So you're essentially stacking up like $29.8 million in terms of emotionals and punitives. And that generally isn't going to make sense. So you've now signaled with your opening demand, plaintiff's not okay. Plaintiff's got a wedge with the attorney because there's no way the attorney was like, we should go for 30 mil. Like, that attorney was like, hey, I don't want to call you stupid, but like, this is self-harm. You're engaging in self-harm. You're doing things to harm yourself and your claims because you don't understand and you won't listen, right? That's the conversation that attorney has to have with their client when their client does the like 30 mil thing, right? So, listen, you can have a $30 million case. It's just statistically, you probably don't, right? So I use that as an example. Now, in the scheme of things, there are so many things for you to think about when structuring the early stages of your settlement demands. As things progress, as you begin to go back and forth, whether it's at mediation or in settlement negotiations, the number of data points, the number of factors that you have to keep playing in your head at each volley back and forth will actually diminish, right? Like you'll begin to learn what the other side's concerned about. You'll begin to learn what they think are like the big risks in your case. Because they say things like, really? Really? You think you're going to get past the one-on-one elevator conversation with that wild stuff? Nobody's going to believe my guy said that. Do they mean it? Maybe. Is that a cogent point in the case? Is that a battlefield that will determine who gets paid in this case? Probably. So they probably are thinking about that a lot, right? And you will then have less and less and less on the back and forth to worry about. Don't be afraid, if you don't like the way things are going, to reintroduce some complexity. But if things are generally going well and in the direction you want, embrace the simplicity. Simple cases, simple negotiations get done. Simplicity gets to yes. Yes, we're done here. Yes, you are paying me and it does not make me whole, but I am willing to walk away because I've had enough of this process and I feel you've been sufficiently punished. That's getting to yes in our field, right? And I know I'm not giving you a lot of information about all the stages of keeping the totality of the circumstance in your mind as you negotiate. And it's kind of similar to why I don't give case law in the channel. Like, there's probably less than 20 people who watch this channel who can like contend with case law. And maybe one of those 20 people post case law on this channel. Like, the other 19 do not post case law on this channel because you're like, yeah, you wouldn't discuss case law in the comments on a YouTube video. It's not really a useful endeavor, right? So then a lot of the other people who like demand case law and post about case law on the channel, like they're barely even grasping what's being said in that case law. I'm not saying any particular person, no particular person. But it's similar here in that like a lot of people who want to engage in like complex schemes of negotiation, it's simple sounding. But in my experience, and perhaps I'm just a little slow, in my experience, playing those kind of games require a lot of touches, a lot of repetitions at that specific kind of negotiation. So, Junk says 19, I will say to you, you're trying to simplify, you're not trying to get complex, you're not trying to play games, and I think that's a great idea. And I don't know that what your approach is wrong. I don't know that. My gut says, don't give everything away and come in light. But do get to that $75,000 number you want relatively early in your negotiation, and be clear. Be clear, like this is the line in the sand for me. This is the last but final. I believe, and maybe set out a few reasons. Hopefully you have an attorney to do that for you. But set out a few reasons why you believe that offer of settlement is an incredible deal. And then tell them clearly, like, listen, I'm not going to take less than this. And you can just come back with a yes or no, but I'm not going further, and I need you to understand that. And hopefully they will believe you if that is how you feel. And I think, listen, if you have the the good liability and the strength of your case is, what was done to you is very egregious. I think that's a great deal for the defense. I think they'll jump at that, and I really hope that you get what you want. Comment down below. I'd love to hear the comments. I said a few things here that people might take issue with. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you think about it. I would love to hear about that. Junksys19, if you want to give us more data, we'll make follow-up videos. If this video was helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below, share our channel so it can grow. Take care.